Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
I'm Jay Stu.
And today we're talking about The Goonies, released in 1985, directed by Richard Donner, written by Christopher Columbus from a story by Steven Spielberg, and starring Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Jeff Cohen, Cary Green, Martha Plimpton, Ke Kwan, I think I pronounced that right, Robert Davi, Joe Pantoliano, and Anne Ramsey as Mama Fratelli. This was a movie that I think for a lot of people my age, they kind of grew up on. You know, it was, I have many friends who have quoted this movie, and it seems to be a staple of their childhood movie watching, but that was not the case for me. I saw pieces of it as a kid, but I don't think I actually ever watched the whole thing from beginning to end until I was an adult. So
that's a crime.
It absolutely blows me away, man.
Yeah.
It's just the fact of like the movie culture that you like,
Mm-hmm.
and you haven't seen the Goonies except a couple times and didn't grow up with it. Just
It's mind blowing.
like he said, it's a crime. It's not a crime, but it's a shame.
No, it's a crime. You should go to jail.
Okay, I might get on board with that actually. Yeah, man, like you missed out big time. That was one you missed.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like I said, the nostalgia factor really isn't there for me because I didn't really watch it as a kid. And so I do feel like I kind of missed out. And I don't know why it wasn't something that I watched more often. I don't know if my parents had an issue with it or something, because I know the kids in the movie do, curse here and there. So maybe my parents were not a fan of that. I don't know. I have no idea why I didn't really watch this. And the only times I did see those pieces, like I said, was when it came on TV. So, I didn't own it. I don't think we rented it ever. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that one just kind of, was outside of my radar or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most nostalgic movies for me. I used to watch this a lot. It came on TBS quite often, and I watched it every single time it came on.
Yeah, I do have a memory, a vague memory of my dad mentioning to me one day that it was coming on. I was like 5 years old, and his like interest in it piqued my interest, because he wasn't like, I know, Justin, your dad watched a lot more television or movies than my dad, like as far as this, like, he saw Batman once in the theater, which is not something he did a whole lot. As far as my understanding, your dad would go and see a lot of the exciting movies in the theater. Like,
yeah, I think he did. I mean, I know for like with Batman, he knew that I really wanted to see Batman, and so he kind of, and I was when Batman came out, I was like 5 years old, so he kind of went and previewed it first to make sure it was okay, and then took me to go see it. And but he saw, my dad traveled a lot, so I don't have that many memories of him seeing big movies, but I know like he went and saw Speed, and I wanted to see Speed so badly, and that's the one time, besides like previewing a movie for us when we were kids, that's the one time I know my dad saw a movie more than once in the theater. Like he liked Speed enough that he went and saw it again, which just made me want to see it that much more. I was like, it's so good. I know it's so good because my dad is going to see it again.
And the imagination in your head is just like thinking of all the things that could be happening in the movie.
Exactly. So, and I know, like, I went and saw Twister with my dad and stuff. So, yeah, I think my dad did go see.
I just thought of this real quick. Like, you're like, in Speed, like, do they hit 88 miles per hour and then go back in time?
My dad'd be like, "What?
Is there a flux capacitor on the bus?"
It is actually Back to the Future 4. It's the secret name.
It is, isn't it?
I knew it.
Why can't I see this movie? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, my dad did go see Probably, quite a few movies, but I mean, when this movie came out, I was 2 years old. I don't really see him going to see this movie in the theater unless we showed interest in it and he was going to preview it or something. But I don't know. I don't think it's not like my dad was like a huge Richard Donner fan and needed to go see every Richard Donner film that came out.
Right. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the way that he's kind of talked. Maybe it's something I just kind of picked up from the way he kind of has talked about movies lately, and hearing some of the stuff that you had seen on TV because your parents were wanting to watch it or whatever. I just remember thinking that your dad seemed to have more of an interest to see, I guess, more out. Like for instance, he's was really excited. He saw Star Wars in the theater, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was really excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if my dad, I think I know he saw Star Wars, and back then, theater was where you saw it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then a few years later, they might run it on TV, but I don't. He was never into Star Wars when I was growing up, so
Right.
I don't think he was like super into that kind of stuff. He did get me into Indiana Jones, which is also kind of a relation to this with Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it kind of has a younger, we're doing a younger Indiana Jones kind of style movie,
Yeah.
For sure.
I also get E.T. vibes from it too, just because of the
totally.
the gang of children and stuff.
Yeah.
So it definitely has like some Spielberg, obviously the story is by Spielberg, but it's got like that feeling of a couple of different Spielberg films kind of mixed
Right.
into it.
Yeah, it's
I
definitely
wonder
got
if
that Spielberg magic to it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just wondering, I was thinking, I wonder if some of why his ideas feel similar. Like, what if he was inspired by a scene of like underground passages or something that he wanted to do in E.T. with a group of kids, couldn't do it. So he's like, well, let's just take that idea and make a whole nother movie out of it.
Right. Yeah. Maybe. It could
yeah.
be.
Yeah.
That's
Because,
very
you got
plausible. Very plausible.
Yeah. I just thought as anyway. But another thing, it was, bringing that up, my daughter saw the kids on the bike and she's like, they're copying Pennywise. And it's like,
You're like,
Grace, this came out before I think this came out before the book even came out of it.
I think you're right. I could be wrong, but I think it was a year later, like 86 or maybe.
So I said,
87 or
Grace,
something.
if anything, like Stephen King probably got his idea to do it like that for this. But then I was also going to ask, wasn't what's that other story he does? There's not Supernatural, but it's like about kids.
Stand By Me?
Stand By Me. That's it.
The story was called The Body that he wrote.
Right.
And I'm not sure. That one did come out. I've got his books over here. That one did come out before it, so it's possible that one I think was before the Goonies, but I'm not sure. I don't know the exact publication date of that book. It was in a book called Different Seasons, which is where The Shawshank Redemption was published as well.
But when I think of movies like this where you have like a group of kids that are like buddies and everything, like even the Stand By movie pops in my mind. So I'm like, it just feels like they're all kind of inspired. This also definitely goes into the Hardy Boys, like they bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like I was thinking, even Scooby-Doo kind of styles stuff. It's just, but I think it all does go back to like the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, kind of.
Talking about the kids, let's talk about the cast. What you think about the cast of kids that that are in the movie? Sean Astin as Mikey.
Yeah, I love the cast. I was very fond of Mouth, Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
He's quite annoying, but annoying in a good way. He's very funny.
I agree. He is annoying in a good way, but he does a great job in the movie. And I actually feel really bad for Rosalita when he's like telling her about the drugs and how to wear the drugs, and then and then he like threatens her. He's like, "You'll, if you don't do a good job, you'll stay here with the cockroaches or something like that." Yeah, I was like, "Oh my gosh." And he never like says I'm kidding to her. He's just like, I was kind of shocked by that. By the way, I've not seen this movie in forever, so like the begin and especially the beginning of the movie. So a lot of that stuff felt just brand new to me, practically. So
It's so crazy to think about still. But I literally watched this movie having like digesting it. Like I said, it had been so long, and I was actually really able to sit down and kind of focus on this since we were doing it for the podcast. I had more of a thought to do that. And it was really neat to watch this movie from a critical standpoint because I was really not finding anything. There's like two things that I've kind of was like, that didn't age well. But the way that it's directed, the actors, that's what we were talking about, was the actors and actresses. Like, they're all perfect. Like Mikey, Sean Astin, sometimes you can literally, I've obviously seen Lord of the Rings just as much as the Goonies now. Yeah. And I knew he was Mikey, but like I said, it had been so long since I'd watched this movie. You know, it's probably been close to 10 years since I've seen it. And I wasn't watching it much in the early 2000s either. So Sean Astin to me is like, you know, Samwise Gamgee. But to go back and see him play Mikey, it's like sometimes I'm like, oh, that was Sam. I saw and heard Sam right there.
Right.
Now, granted, like I said, I did grow up with this movie, so he's definitely Mikey to me.
Yeah.
But I just think it's cool that it's Sean Astin because I didn't learn that until after I got into Lord of the Rings and then found out that he was Mikey. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So for me, like, you know, since I said, I didn't grow up with this movie. The first Sean Astin movie I ever saw was Encino Man. Did you ever see Encino Man?
No.
Really? Neither of you guys have seen Encino Man?
No.
That's the movie that I watched over and over again.
Oh man, maybe we should watch. We should maybe do that episode next, so we have the opposite effect, right?
Maybe you should. So in that one, he's a high school. So this is a movie that I loved as a kid. I don't know how well it will have aged because his best friend is Pauly Shore.
Well, yeah, you just solidified how well it's going to age. Lack thereof.
I just instinctively and involuntarily threw my head up to the sky when you said that, and then I was like, "Oh wow, that was a reaction."
And then it was the first movie I ever saw Brendan Fraser in too, because he plays the caveman who gets Basically, what it is they find a caveman frozen in ice. And they thaw him out. And so Brendan Fraser is a caveman in the 90s, like going to high school and stuff. And he ends up becoming like this popular kid at school, even though he doesn't speak English and everything.
I remember. Yeah, I never saw that movie, but I definitely remember seeing, like, knowing about it.
I love how Justin is flabbergasted, how we've never seen Encino Man. Then on the other hand, he's only seen the Goonies twice in his adult life.
Right. Yes. Yes, that's true. I think
it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't say that in this recording, but I think this is only the second time I've ever seen this movie all the way through from beginning to end. Which is, I know, a shame, a crime, perhaps, but
blasphemous.
Yeah. But yeah, Encino Man is the Sean Astin movie I grew up with, and then Rudy, of course, too. Rudy, I've seen that movie more times than the Goonies, probably as well. So.
I haven't seen Rudy in its entirety. I've seen it in bits and pieces also on TBS. But this was the first thing that I'd seen Sean Astin in was Goonies.
Yeah.
So with you, this being, you said your third time, I guess, saying this, right?
I think from beginning to end, I think this is only the second time I've ever seen it.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking you was, okay, wow.
Yeah, we need to bump that up to like 6 or 7.
Right. Yeah. I saw pieces of it here and there growing up and stuff because I would catch it on TV, but I don't think I'd ever started it from beginning to end and watched it as a kid. And it seems like every time I caught it on TV, it was always the end. I always saw kind of the, hey, you guys, to the end of the movie. And so I never saw the first half really.
Gosh, so you you had no surprise of like what the creature was going to be you saw it this time for the second time all the way through. So if you notice when you're going through, the first setup with Chuck is Chunk. Yeah. There's a whole. This is one of the notes that I took was the whole like Steven Spielberg dynamic, where they just are building up the suspense. Okay, I want to go to the beginning of the movie, and we're going to talk about how this movie opens up.
I actually wrote a note about the opening of this film.
I love the opening.
So the opening of this movie, you start off with the guy hanging there, and as a kid, that's
pretty dark for a kid.
Yes,
that's what. That's exactly what I wrote down. I said this is a really dark way to start off a kids movie.
Right. So, this was also before Temple of Doom, right?
Yes, this is before the PG-13.
So this would have probably would have been PG-13. I would imagine.
I feel like today's standards, it would have definitely been PG-13, even then, but it was before the PG-13 rating, I think so.
Yeah, you got a dude hanging by the neck, and then you got quite a few curse words.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bit of
I think the language is definitely the thing that would have made it. And obviously by today's standards, that's like nothing.
Also, the just some of the scary elements. I mean, like the skeletons, the dead bodies they find. The stiff in the freezer that it keeps falling on.
Right.
Like that. I think that would have been PG-13, material basically.
That's a funny scene. I was laughing so hard.
To me, I was laughing out loud so many times, but I realized several times I was laughing out loud was because I knew like what was about to come up.
Yeah.
So like, oh, by the way, that's something I wanted to start out with was like, I got to, like I said, I watched this with my kids and they didn't remember it. So I got to like sit here and watch this with my kids at a much more able to understand everything. And like, we were all just on the couch watching Goonies, and it was like one of the best father moments.
I can't wait. I cannot wait until my kids are old enough that I can do that. Show them the Goonies and the Dark Knight and Batman 89.
And it just being all new to them. So I even asked my oldest son if he liked the movie, and he said yes, which he never says he likes movies. He's like, it was okay. But he did say yes. And I was like, oh, that's right.
Nice.
Did you cry? I feel like you cried.
No. I was just radiating with just
tears.
Just admit it, John.
I got dehydrated like within a minute, man.
No, a bug got in my eye, and I was just
just a little eye sweat. That's all it is. A little eye sweat.
Right.
Anyway, so my daughter had some statements too that were pretty funny. And we were talking earlier, and I was going to get to that, but I didn't get to say it. It was something. Anyway, so the beginning, like I said, we start with the hanging guy, but you immediately find out he's not, and you're already tricked, right? Like within the first minute and 30 seconds, Steven Spielberg, Richard Donner, they have already tricked you. And you're just feeling what are the possibilities of this movie, where the twist is going to be. Being able, like I said, watching this from a critical standpoint, I loved watching this movie and thinking about how the writers' minds and the director, like how they were making this movie, because there was really nothing like this when this movie came out. It was one of the first. And this was when Steven Spielberg was kind of paving the way for movie magic, So you get I love the breaking him out there. You got the classic breakout scene, which I would say this movie helped kind of solidify it becoming a classic breakout scene. But you've got the mom waiting there at the car, and then he's pouring the gasoline and shoots, and then the fire goes around. Like they've had this elaborate plan of how to break out their brother. And then you have the introductions of the character through the police chase. That's
brilliant.
It's so creative. And you're meeting these, like one of my kids was like, let me guess, these kids are the ones that are going to be in the Goonies. By the time we got to Data, which I have something to go on this as well, his name. My kids were like, yeah, that's when it was. And then, you have Chunk like spilling the milkshake.
He slams. Yeah, he like slams his pizza slice against the window and squeezes his milkshake all over himself. And then he's like, "Oh man."
Yeah. You have the language right there at the beginning. You're like, you've got this kid that that's there's the thing. These were 80s kids. And I told my kids that too. Like, this was Generation X is really who these kids are. So and then we get to I like mouth scene where he's watching the police chase and his dad's like, turn that down, I can't hear myself think, and then he turns off the TV, and then the cars, there's an actual police chase right outside. He like smacks the TV. There were just so many clever things throughout the movie. It was like I've said 100 times and will say again, very classic, like Spielberg.
And they're small things, but when they work in sequence together, it just creates this magical feeling. Because nothing that he did was elaborate. It's just little details to create this one cohesive magical tone.
Yep. So what did you think of the opening scene, Justin?
I really liked it a lot. I thought, like you said, it was really kind of genius to have the police chase going. And then seeing like a couple of the kids see the chase, Data almost gets run over.
Yeah.
He's testing out a couple of his inventions, and then what I love, the thing I love about mouth scene where his dad tells him to turn it off and he's slamming the TV is he doesn't even bother to like look outside. The cards are outside the window, like right behind him, and he's just slamming the TV like, what's going on with this thing? And then turns around. I like that a lot. And one of the things I totally didn't remember, if you had asked me before I had rewatched the movie, I would have thought Josh Brolin's character didn't get along with Mikey or Mouth or Chunk, but he seems like a part of the group. He's pretty supportive of his brother and everything. Until they tie him up.
He's kind of a jerk from the get-go, in my opinion. And then
I didn't think so. I thought, he's he's lifting weights and his brother's talking and he's correcting him on what he's trying to say, but they're like kind of hanging out. Like his Mouth makes fun of him for failing his driver's test, and he kind of gets a little upset about that. But he seems pretty cool with his little brother.
Well, I always thought he was just the quintessential big brother. I just thought they always had that that type of relationship. I didn't think that he was any more of a jerk than anybody else's big brother.
That's what I mean. Yeah. He's been living with Mikey for like 15 years. He's very annoyed with him at this point. Yeah, that's definitely what it is.
That's not the vibe I got, but all right. I didn't get that he was annoyed with Mikey until they tied him up and he left the house, because he told, his mom told him not to let Mikey leave the house. And then they tied him up and they left, and that's when he got kind of upset with Mikey. That's how I took it. But you guys have seen this movie more than I have, so we'll defer to you guys.
I'm sorry, now I feel like we're ganging up on you, man.
No. It's fine. No, it's fine.
You should say this movie.
I'm sitting here like with my arms crossed.
You're like, what do you know? You've only seen this movie twice. No, it's that's just what I got from watching it today, and I remember being kind of surprised by it, going, man, I thought he was like a complete jerk to his brother, but that's not really the vibe I got. He was just being a big brother to his brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that about it. And one of the other notes I wrote was when Chunk shows up, Mouth makes him do the truffle shuffle or whatever, but then Mikey's like, leave him alone, and he goes to let him in, and he's got this big elaborate Rube Goldberg machine that goes blah blah blah, which is cool. But the note I wrote was it would have taken him less time to just walk down there and open the gate.
Right.
And then the other thing is that him doing these Rube, it's only that one Rube Goldberg contraption, but that never comes into play again. So I thought it was kind of a weird character moment where they like show how Mikey has set up this elaborate thing, but then unless it's just him being a paying attention to detail and being able to figure out puzzles and stuff. I don't know if
I've
that was
always
what it was,
interpreted that to be that he was he has a very
he's just
detail oriented.
intuitive.
He's intuitive, he's detail oriented, he's analytical.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that he's the de facto leader of the Goonies.
Right.
Or maybe Data built it.
Or maybe Data built it. Yeah, who knows?
Maybe they built it together.
They probably did.
Speaking of Mikey and Data, I have these.
Nice.
So
wow.
I'm definitely a big fan.
Gee, are you a collector?
Yeah, I'm
How many do you have?
50-ish, which is small compared to other collectors, but I don't have the room for it anymore.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Because they take up a lot of space.
Do you keep all of yours in the box?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have a lot of them that are out of the box, but I've started the ones I haven't bought any recently, but the last few that I've bought, I've kept in the box.
Yeah, I don't take mine out of the box unless they're duplicates.
Right. Well, let's see. We talked about Sean Astin. We talked about Corey Feldman, his mouth. And we talked about, let's talk about Chunk. What do you guys think about Chunk?
He's incredible.
Absolutely.
I could not like watching it this time. Like I said, from a critical aspect, I was like watching his acting and I was like, this kid is amazing.
I agree.
His delivery, his facial expressions,
his timing.
Yes. It for this character, like perfect. He's maybe, it's possible he's my favorite character. I don't know. He's up there. So
he's got one of my favorite moments in the movie, which is when he's confessing to the Fratellis and he talks about how he took the fake vomit to the movie theater and he poured it over the edge. and then all the people in the theater started throwing up and he was like, I never felt so guilty in all my life. That part actually made me laugh out loud. I was so
cracking
good.
up the whole time because I was just like, thinking about my kids listening to this for the first time, and it was just cracking me. I laughed out loud so many times, like right when they tie up Brand with the bands.
Yeah.
And he goes out first. I love how he's looking for his bike, which they have messed up.
Deflated the
He
tires,
looks at that and then he looks for what's his next option. And luckily there's a little girl on a small girl bike there. So he just goes and picks her up.
Yeah.
and then I just started cracking up seeing him riding on the bike, knowing that they were going to be coming up behind him, like his classmates.
Yeah.
And he has no idea. And they just he doesn't realize it until they pull up next to him. He looks over and it's what's his name?
Troy.
Yes,
Troy
it's
and
Troy. And I just watching my daughter because she's in high school. So I'm just imagining how she's connecting with the thought of that. It was just funny. Very funny.
No, I agree. Going back to what you said about Chunk. Chunk is definitely one of my favorite characters in the movie. Him and Mouth, they steal the show for me. One of my favorite scenes with Chunk was in the freezer and the dead body, and the dead body keeps falling on him. He keeps trying to stand him up and he just keeps falling on him. That scene is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, he's so good throughout. So I was going to mention, I saw something a while ago. It was a Star Trek documentary, I guess, when I was starting to get into Star Trek. And some guy mentioned that the word was never pronounced data until Data from Star Trek. It was always data. And then for whatever reason,
incorrect.
he said the Next Generation changed it to Data. And then everyone started saying Data. But this movie came out before the Next Generation.
Yep. Yeah.
So and he's called Data in this.
Yeah.
So Data, the pronunciation actually comes from Data from the Goonies.
If that's true, I mean, it seems weird that there would.
Well, I'm saying, making it the main way to say it.
Right.
I think he was saying at the time, people were saying
everybody said data until gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny. I didn't even, while watching the movie, I didn't even think about the fact that he shares the name with, the Data from Star Trek. I do like how Data talks in the third person. Another one of my favorite little moments in the movie is they find the pirate ship and Data falls through the floor, and I thought to myself, boy, Data falls a lot, and then he goes, Data is tired of falling.
Yeah, that's one of the notes I wrote down was there's moments where the director is like, you guys need to be afraid. And it was the scene where I don't remember who was running, but one of them was trying to get out, and you had the big stones that were coming. And they showed a shot of the kids like freaking out about the situation. And they were all very believable. Like they looked scared and were like, you could see the expression. So the kids, just as a group, I wouldn't be surprised if, they were friends, on the
off
set
camera. Yeah, I was gonna say they have amazing chemistry. They are 100% believable as best friends, like the whole group.
Yes,
Well, we didn't talk about Andy or Steph. Martha Plimpton and Carrie, I forget her name, but
Carrie Green.
Carrie Green. I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to say about them. They're fine,
I don't have a whole lot to say about Andy. I do like the way Steph plays off of mouth.
So Steph is great.
Yeah,
she definitely has a built up like character.
Yeah, definitely.
Andy is like nothing. I don't think Carrie Green does a bad job, but she's to me more of the the girl they get at the end.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
Steph has a great line when they're in the restaurant, and she goes, I feel like I'm babysitting, but I'm not getting paid, or something like that, about being around all the different kids. And then we have the Fratellis. We've got Mama Fratelli and the two sons, plus Sloth. What do you think about them?
Love the Fratellis. I love how the two brothers bicker the whole time.
I couldn't help but think, Christopher Columbus wrote this movie, and I realize he didn't write Home Alone, but I couldn't help but think about Home Alone while watching those two guys, especially when after Data uses the slick shoes on the log and they fall on the log, and then the next one goes out there to try to do it and he falls. I got Home Alone vibes from that, and I wondered if, maybe Christopher Columbus, who directed Home Alone, had gave John Hughes some inspiration or something from this film.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. By the way, Slick Shoes is a punk band I used to listen to in high school.
That's
and watching this, he said, Slick Shoes. And they said something about Slick Shoes. And I said, I had no idea that the band got their name from this movie. But clearly they got their name from this movie.
That's hilarious. And Anne Ramsey.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, she's so good.
Yeah.
It's especially I remember as a kid,
she scared me.
Oh yes. Yeah.
She definitely scared me.
She plays that character really well. She's also the only other movie I really know her from is Throw Mama from the Train. Yeah. And she's great in that movie too. She's fantastic.
I love how at the end, how they kind of made the three Fratellis pirates. Like she's like making them walk the plank with the sword. And she's got that kind of gruff voice. So, and I don't remember I don't think she's wearing a hat or anything, but like Sloth is.
Right.
But it just had like a pirate feel to it. And I just loved that at the end.
Yeah. I mean, this whole movie definitely has pirate vibes. I think that was the whole idea of the Fratellis, that they were supposed to take the thematic place of pirates, even though they weren't actual
Pirates
on the sea. They still had that pirate like feel. Because I mean, this movie is essentially a treasure hunt, so it makes complete sense that they would be pirates or informal pirates.
I felt like at the beginning of the movie, with like you got the Italian and everything, I felt like it was also kind of a mob kind of aspect to it. You've got who plays Robert, is it Davey?
Davey is how I've always said it, but I don't know how you pronounce it actually.
Davey?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's just, he's got the suit on. He looks like a mafia character. You have like the mom who's like the head of the family, and they're, like, so.
By the way, I love that scene when Chunk goes to get the police and he stops the car and it's coming. Like he's not talking to the right people. But I love that shot. It felt very Spielberg to me when Robert Davey turns on that light and you see he's talking to one of the Fratelli brothers and Chunk just gets all scared. I mean, that shot was just fantastic with seeing him in the reflection and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
Yeah. And that's another part where I actually started laughing and I realized, like, as my kids were watching it, they were probably like, why is he laughing? Like when he turned on the light, and I just started cracking up because I knew that what to come was the interrogation.
Right.
So I just started cracking up. Yeah. I was like, oh, he's going back. And my kids are probably like, Dad, why are you laughing? He's going to die.
I love, too, that Chunk finally got away from that frozen, dead body. And then he's immediately put into the trunk with the dead body.
There's so much comedy in this movie, and I felt like it really held up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. I laugh every time. The jokes in this movie never get old.
Yeah. So Justin, what was, since this was your second time seeing it, like, what was your favorite part?
That scene with Chunk, the interrogation with Chunk is probably my favorite scene. But I also really like the scene when they first discover the pirate ship. They ended up like kind of sliding down this water slide type thing. Mm-hmm. And they land in a pool of water and they're just kind of happy they're alive. They're all hugging each other. And then I forget who sees it first, but I remember Mouth especially being like, oh my. And they all kind of turn around and you see the ship and the music kind of swells and everything. And it's just, you feel super happy for them because they finally found it. That's what they've been searching for the whole movie and they finally got there. So I really, really enjoyed that part too. And of course, when Sloth, and Chunk show up to save the day, that's always a good scene too. Yeah, exactly.
I love how much detail they went into his ears.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
How they would move.
It's
Yeah.
great.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. His just like his whole face, his whole head is like just a character itself,
Mm-hmm.
She makes the comment that makes it kind of sad. She's like, I only dropped you twice. And you're just like this was, it's kind of dark.
I missed that line. That's crazy. I guess I was not paying attention very closely at that moment. That's crazy.
Is he human?
No, he's definitely human. He just was
dropped on his head.
Dropped
at least
pretty
twice.
Hard. At least
twice. Yeah. It was dark, but such a great character and so lovable.
Absolutely. My favorite part is actually one of the booby trap scenes when they're playing the bone piano, the skeleton piano. I love that part.
That's the other note I wrote. So I didn't write very many notes, but one of the notes I wrote is because at one point Andy gets all flustered and she goes, I don't, is it A sharp or B flat? And I wrote, it's the same note. And I like, and Mikey is good in that scene too, because he says, he's like, it's okay. Goonies make mistakes. He goes, just don't make any more.
Right. And I really love how Mikey kind of like held the group together.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had 2 or 3 monologue scenes that were, pretty good.
Yeah, he convinced the group to keep going because they all, once they find the wishing well, and Troy's up there with the other 2 guys, they're all gonna go up the well to escape. And he's like, look, Chester Copperpot. I wanted to say Cobblepot, but
I did too.
Chester Copperpot, died over there. We have now officially made it farther than him. Like, we are this much closer to finding this treasure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that too, how he kind of convinces them to not give up and to keep going, even though they could die, which was a very real possibility since Chester Copperpot definitely did.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of my favorite things about the movie is that not only does it have a sense of magic, but you kind of feel the stakes. Like you could definitely feel like they could actually die. He pointed out, Chester Copperpot is dead, and nobody has ever found him. So like we could be stuck down here forever. It's like, we've come this far. We may as well just keep going to see if we actually find this thing.
Right. And to piggyback off that, they did an excellent job of setting up why these kids are looking for the treasure. It's not just these kids are just looking for treasure to try to get rich. They're trying to save their neighborhood. Yeah, their homes, because they're going to be all torn down.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked, going back to the very beginning, the mom saying, "I want this house to be tidy before it gets torn down." And I was like, my mom would probably say the same thing.
Another line that she said that made me really crack up. It wasn't the line so much as when she came home and saw like Brand like strapped to the chair,
Right.
And he's like, "Mom," and she's like,
"Mom, you gotta help
"Hey,
me.
why can't you kids work out like normal people?" And he's like, "Mom," and I don't remember what he says. Let's see. I think I had it written down. Yeah, she says you're hyperventilating. You need to take it easy. So, and then she just walks off.
And then you see Rosalita coming in, struggling with the groceries. She's holding one bag at the top and kicking 2 cans in.
Yeah. I'm curious who really like put in. This was almost like the comedy was almost like theatrical, like a theater.
Absolutely.
And I appreciated that.
Another one of my favorite elements of the movie is the score. The music, I think, is really, really good in this movie.
Bro.
And I looked up the composer, Dave Grusin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but
that's right.
He did Tootsie, The Graduate, The Firm. He's listed as music producers on a couple of those, so I assume he was the composer as well. But I didn't recognize his name, but the music is really good. I actually thought
it's incredible.
Yeah,
it's magical.
Opinion. Yeah,
I know I use that word a lot, but I mean that's just what this movie is. Yeah. I mean, especially with, like you said, with the music, it's creepy and fantastical at the same time.
Right. And in the beginning with the car chase, with the police chase, like it has like a lightness to it, so you're in for a family friendly movie, but at the same time it is very big and has it also kind of, like you kind of said, Stu, it has kind of that magical quality to it. So you also know you're going to be in for like a really kind of fun adventure as well. Yeah, it's adventurous. Absolutely. That's kind of it's a really good score. I like the music a lot.
My favorite thing about the score are the parts where they're in the underground in the caves, and you hear that like synthesized noise. Like I love that. That definitely. That definitely makes me feel like I'm 10 years old again.
No kidding. Yeah, it has. It's just like I was getting ready to say what you just said, like magical. Like it's got that mystery to it. And kind of, I think it's kind of inspired just by that kids trying to solve mysteries kind of thing, like it's just trying to make that whole like Hardy Boys, Scooby-Doo kind of thing. And that was another thing, was even though we're watching a live action movie, there's somewhat almost of a cartooniness to it.
Yeah.
If you like at times, like there's
in a good way.
Yeah. There's like one point where the one that kind of made me really think, okay, this is super cartoony, was the mouth. What's it called? The chompers that caught him when he was falling.
Yeah.
That's actually. I was going to ask you guys if you had any criticisms of the movie, because I know that you guys love it so much, and I didn't know if there was anything about it that you didn't care for. And that, for me, that scene is one of my least favorite moments, is when Data uses the teeth to catch his fall.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so unrealistic and silly. But I know, like, if I had seen it as a kid, I probably would have liked it, and the nostalgia factor would have kicked in. But since I didn't see that as a kid, that was a moment that I was like, ugh, about. But it was, I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings towards the movie at all, because of I know, when it came out and everything, it was.
Well, watching it this time, I was definitely, when I saw, that was one of the moments where I was going to say, I was like, that didn't hold up well.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, like, I definitely didn't have a problem with. Well, I mean, I think it had that, like, there's something not quite right with this, but you're a little kid watching it, and so I'm fine with it just because it's part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it definitely grabbed my attention. I was like,
for me, some of the special effects scenes felt off. Like you could see the outline of things that were placed in front of other backgrounds. It did not hold up well at all.
Did you notice the boat? The first time they're standing in front of the boat is actually a board.
Yeah.
I had never picked up on that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ignore it because you love the movie so much. You only saw it now because you're watching it from a critical standpoint.
Right.
Yeah. Well, my son made a comment about it. He was like, because I told him CGI wasn't really a
thing yet.
Yeah. And he was like, and then that came up and he was like, oh, there's no CGI, Dad. And I was looking at it and I was like, interesting. But then, finally, like, my eye fixed itself and I was like, oh, that's not even, because when they later go on the ship, I figured they had just had this built out ship and that was just a shot from back, but it's just a board. Okay.
Yeah. Back in my day,
I remember one special effects shot that just looked very obvious that it was an effect was when they're holding up the doubloon, and he can see like the lighthouse in one hole of it, and like that just had a very kind of composite shot type,
absolutely,
look to it.
That's the very scene that I was thinking of when I made that comment.
Yeah, but again, I can forgive that too because it was 1985 and they were, the effects back then weren't at as developed as they are now and everything. So.
And it's all in technique because you got things like Star Wars that came out years before, and then like certain scenes in Star Wars are they still hold up. It's still beautiful.
Yeah. There was I remember when I was going to bring that up because actually I remember when the special editions of Star Wars were released in theaters, they kind of they updated some of the special effects. And I guess I was watching a special feature on a VHS. Maybe it was like a after the film type thing. I don't remember. Or maybe it was on TV. But I remember the Battle of Hoth, especially, like when it has the ships that like Luke is flying, to like fly around the AT-ATs and stuff. Every now and again, if you were to watch that, you could actually see like through the ship or something. It looked like transparent. Just because of the way the effects were back then. And so that was one of the things they updated so it wouldn't look so transparent. And that's kind of the vibe I got in that shot with the doubloon, is that it kind of almost had this weird outliney kind of transparent feeling to it.
I don't think I said like my favorite part of the movie. But
we don't care.
I know.
No, what's your favorite scene in the movie, John?
Well, I don't know. I was going to just say like,
all of it. My favorite part of the movie is the movie.
From beginning to end.
I couldn't believe how like I said, I was so astounded with the story, like the creativity. Oh, I remember what I was going to say I'm just kind of shocked that Steven Spielberg, if he wasn't busy, and I would imagine that when did Temple of Doom come out?
84.
It was 84?
Mm-hmm.
So then Last Crusade, wasn't that 89?
Yeah.
Yes.
He must have been working on something though. Like that did not let him do this project is my guess.
I think The Color Purple came out in 85, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And what was after that?
85.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what was after
'Cause
that.
that's the
'Cause I
same
feel
year.
like that
Empire of the Sun was 87, so he might have been. I mean, that was 2 years, but I don't. The Color Purple was 85. Empire of the Sun was 87. I think Always and Indiana Jones came out in 89.
Yeah. It almost feels like it was like I brought up, maybe a scene from like E.T. or something, but it could also feel like maybe an Indiana Jones idea that he would have done with Indiana Jones, but he was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this story. We'll use this story, but we use kids. But I don't know, man. It's just, yeah, I guess.
I could see. I mean, he made he made Raiders in 81 and E.T. in 82, right. And I could see him kind of thinking like, I really like both of these movies. I want to kind of put them together. Like, what if we took the kids from E.T. and an adventure story that, normally would be kind of an Indiana Jones thing and put them together? I could definitely see that kind of being his thought process,
Right. And it's kind of obviously the style and like genre that he was invested in heavily at the time.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a big fan of
Spielberg.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Spielberg, but I was going to say War of the Worlds was kind of like,
oh yeah,
he hadn't done like extraterrestrial for so long, and then went to that, which we'll have to do that movie sometime too.
Yeah, we will.
Cool.
I've never seen it.
Really?
You've never seen War of the Worlds?
I've never seen War of the Worlds.
I would be very interested to hear what you think of it since you've never seen it.
Yeah, it came out in 2004, I think, or was it 2005?
I think it was 2005.
So I've watched it recently. Like, I think visually it still holds up pretty well.
Nice.
And the story itself is just, it's good. And you have Tom Cruise. Dakota Fanning is pretty awesome too. Anyway, I'll stop talking about.
Yeah, this is the Goonies episode.
War of the Worlds. Yeah, I got there from Spielberg.
Yeah, I know.
And just how he used to be into kind of, the extraterrestrial and adventurous stuff. And then he kind of took a break from it all the way until like War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
We don't have to put that in at all.
Okay, we'll see. I'm
it's
sure
kind of way off
kind
track.
of naturally kind of get.
Yeah.
One last note that I just kind of thought of that I wanted to bring up was the kids find the ship and they find Mikey finds One-Eyed Willie first.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all sitting around this table full of gold, and I couldn't help but think, I guess the pirates starved to death and they were just all, let's just look at our gold one last time before we finally kick the bucket. Because they're all just kind of sitting around. I mean, not all of them. There's a couple guys that are dead, there's one guy hanging from a net or, rope outside the ship. But
if it says Willie kills all of the men.
That's right. So Willie just decided to sit at his table full of gold.
Yeah, and that's why he secluded himself there and built all those booby traps,
right,
to keep anyone from coming and getting his gold.
He built all those traps by himself, though.
That's what the legend is.
That is what they say. But I wouldn't. It wouldn't be surprised if One-Eyed Willie had his men create all these booby traps and then he killed his men.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, I take that back.
But still, he is not the only one sitting at that table full of gold. So he kills his men, poisons them, whatever he does, and then he sits at the table with his gold, with his dead pirate mates, and just dies at his table full of gold. I don't know. It's just
I'm pretty sure
horrific to think about. Really,
they were probably sitting around, eating, drinking, being merry, and sloppy drunk. One-Eye Willie got really paranoid and just shot everybody randomly.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's
and then himself.
No, I think
he probably just died of starvation.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying. I guess it's just interesting. I don't know. It's just funny to me that he sits at his table and full of gold
while he dies,
and then just dies sitting. I don't know. I mean, I guess where else?
Or they're pirates. They drink a lot of rum, so he could have died of liver poisoning.
Well, that's true. He could have drank himself to death, I suppose.
Yeah. That's plausible.
Still pretty dark.
See,
it's kind of dark either way, no matter what.
I like to think this is where if you say that he built the booby traps,
yeah,
he knew how to get around them. So he was actually going to the surface for years buying food with all the money he had.
Right.
And he died of 102 years old.
Yeah, he was just an old man.
That's what I think.
You'd think, though, that he would have cleared out the bodies from his ship.
He was a very sick individual.
Well, my brain is mayonnaise now.
Right, yes. It's all just mush. I think we should get into our ratings. How about that?
I agree.
I couldn't believe how, just like I said, the Spielberg classic feel and how well knit it was. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 rupees.
I agree. Every time I watch this movie, I am a little kid again. I have very, very specific memories of watching this movie. Sitting on my couch on a Friday night, eating Captain Crunch and watching the Goonies. Everything about this movie is awesome. The music, the cast, the story, the humor. It's just a quintessential family adventure film. 5 out of 5.
Nice. I wish I had that nostalgia. I wish I had those memories of watching it as a kid and that nostalgia, because my rating is not quite so high. It is higher than I was originally going to give it, though, because talking about it with you guys has bumped it up a little bit. But for me, it's I think it's a really great movie. I think it's a really fun adventure film, but it's not a 5 out of 5. For me, I would give it 4 out of 5 doubloons. So yeah, I think it is a classic film, and I think it's definitely worth watching. I just think if you didn't get to see it in the late 80s, early 90s when you were a kid, then, it's still good, but it's not as amazing and magical as it could be, unfortunately.
I get it. I totally get it. I would like nostalgia makes this movie, like Stu and I were saying, just like, it's amazing.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are worse movies that have the same nostalgic feeling.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that kind of gets on my nerves about watching movies with other people. Is like nostalgia smacks people upside the head sometimes.
Right. Yeah, it can.
And this could be viewed as one of them, but I still think that this movie objectively is still a great movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, you gave it 4 out of 5 stars, Justin, and this was the second time you'd seen it. So yeah. I would say that's pretty.
That's something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, we'd love to know what you think about the Goonies. You can always leave us a comment on cinemaheroes.com. You can always tweet at us or comment on our Instagram posts. Both handles are Cinema Heroes. You can leave a comment on our Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM Podcast. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and comment down below what you think about the Goonies. We'd love to hear from you. But I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. I actually wrote a note about the opening of this film.
I love the opening.
Froze on me. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
you just froze on me.
Yeah, you just froze, John. Oh no,
John.
Oh no, no.
I guess God just doesn't want us to do an episode on the Goonies.
We're not supposed to do the Goonies, I guess.
Even God thinks it's blasphemous that I haven't seen this movie enough times, and he's like, nope, you guys aren't doing this episode.